Howdy, everyone, and welcome back to the Joy Without Justification podcast. I first want to start off with making a little bit of a special announcement. Yes, you may realize this is being released not on our normal day. We are going to try to start putting podcasts out like twice a week. And, you know, there's going to be a lot of different changes over the past few podcasts because, you know, we're coming into December.
Yeah,
my God. Thanksgiving's done and over. And we're coming into that crazy month because you not only have to deal with Christmas near the end of this month, but you also then have New Year's at the end of this month. So it's like you're going to have 2 weeks where a bunch of craziness is going to go on.
Yep.
But on those 2 weeks, so we will be doing also 2 podcasts, but they will be on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, when's the holiday? Is it Tuesday and Wednesday?
I thought it was a Wednesday.
I think it is. Yeah, we're doing good.
Okay.
But anywho, welcome back to our podcast here. And we're going to be touching on a subject that Dan knows quite a bit about. Any of you that have listened to any of our videos or previous podcasts, you know Dan has suffered with anxiety. And still at times does still go through it, but through a lot of his meditation practices and that, I guess, has somewhat put it under control. But, yeah. So, what are you going to tell us on this, Dan?
Well, anxiety it's definitely misunderstood. I think people are a little bit more free in talking about it, but there's still a lot of stigma around anxiety. So, what it's like is, for me, was I was continuously in fight, or freeze stage my whole life. I don't really remember too many periods where I wasn't anxious. So it's like my anxiety, like your body's default mode is peace. My default mode was anxiety. So I was just anxiety, and peace was the every so often emotion that I would feel. I never felt it very often.
We all, at some point, do go through a moment of anxiety. I mean, and I can relate a little bit to that. I never really got diagnosed with it or anything, but you do notice that quite a bit in your everyday life if you think about it. I mean, there's always going to be at some point where something's going to trigger that.
Yeah. But when you're in an anxiety disorder, it's just constantly on. Yeah. The way you feel when you're anxious, like when you thought you was going to get bad news from the doctor,
and
you're going in there and your mind's that's for a person with an anxiety disorder, that is continuous.
And personally, I think those doctors do it on purpose so they can diagnose you on a pill that's going to cost probably $500,000 to control something that you probably don't even have. But because that doctor made you nervous, he's going to say you had anxiety.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But that's just ridiculous. But it is true. I mean, I have watched you, and yes, you have made progress.
I've made tremendous progress
with when you were doing first off the ketamine treatments.
We'll get into all that.
But you did make progress because you were able to notice with the treatments things from your past that brought about and caused you to become anxiety ridden.
Yeah, anxiety and OCD.
So, I mean, that's just something that You know, if a lot of people don't really realize what it's like.
Well, I think the most frustrating thing is, and people probably mean well, is they would say, why are you worried about something that's not going to happen? Or why don't you just calm down? Or, you know, what that does to the anxious person is makes you more anxious, because what we hear is there's something wrong with you. And to a person that already has anxiety, and I had a lot of self-loathing, whenever that would be said to me by anybody, it reinforced the idea that I was broken. And then what it would do is propel my anxiety up a notch. So for me, when people would say, you just need to calm down, don't dwell on this, I would think, well, they're able to shut off and not dwell. Why can't I? I'm broken. So that just made it all the much worse. So when you have someone anxious, please don't say that stuff to them, because it just creates another anxiety loop that they have no way of getting out of. So now they got two loops going on, what they were anxious about, and now they're broken.
Okay. I mean, I know I've said that a couple times, but that's only because when I was living in Shamokin, Pennsylvania, and working at a facility over in Sunbury, the one administration, I want to say maybe the social worker, it might have been, was like, don't worry about it. There's always tomorrow.
Right.
What you can't do or handle today, there's always tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's always been my way. And yes, I at times need to try to remember that as well. Whenever I've been going like through the checkbook and it's like, oh my God, how are we going to pay that bill? But I don't go through a lot of what you do when you're going through your anxiety, and I don't understand a lot of, at times, what you're thinking. I know what you say when you're having one of these moments, and I'm not going through it. So to me, my reaction is like, look, you're an awesome salesman. Yeah. You have an award to prove you're an awesome salesman. You need to quit thinking that you're not an awesome salesman.
Well, yeah, with stuff like that, maybe to a degree, but just, anybody, just be careful that it's more important, I think, to be available for the person that has anxiety and just say, look, I don't know how I can help you, but I'm here.
Do you think
that's more important?
Do you think then, like, saying it even the way I did, trying to push that negative thought out of your head that, whatever thought is telling you that you're a failure, that you need to quit thinking that. You need to just look at that award and that case out in the living room and remember, you got that award for a reason.
That's not how
Isn't that
a person
somewhat supportive.
It's just, I think it depends on how far I was into an attack too, and it depends on the circumstances. So that that award was for something last year in my mind, and this year is a new year, and the accounts are different accounts, and I mean, you just reason it different in your mind. So I think just saying, "Hey, I'm here for you," if you want to talk, I'll listen, and just listen. I'm not saying you have to, if they're talking crazy, that you have to go along with stuff that's not, in reality. But I think just be gentle.
I think, though, using what you just said, you gotta, I know when you're going through one of those attacks, it's kind of hard to see it that way.
Yeah.
But you also then got to look at the other person's side, and when you're saying stuff like that and they're looking at you like,
Oh,
what are you thinking?
The people that are in our lives, we put them through hell. There's no doubt in my mind.
But when they're looking at you like, what are you talking about? You're sounding rather nuts. You got to understand that's what they're looking at too.
I understand that. But it's remember I used to say to you when you would say something like, just get over it. And I'd say, that's like telling with someone with cancer just to stop having cancer. You know, we don't want to be this way. You got to understand, this is not something that we want to do. I think it's a learned behavior. Anxiety is usually rooted with anxiety severe like I have is rooted in some kind of trauma. Usually, I would say so. And if, of course, my life, we've talked. So you know that there was some kind of weirdness growing up. My parents were good. They did the best that they could. But my dad, I'm a carbon copy of my father, who's a carbon copy of his father, who's a carbon copy of his father. So that kind of nervous energy just runs through the family. I mean, like, I can remember sitting there and, I could do something horrible. I could go break the law and come and sit down and talk to him and tell him, and he'd be okay with it. I could do something insignificant like sneeze while he was watching, something on TV. He'd just flip the shit out. I mean, and when he got into those kinds of moods that no one knew where they were coming from, it was nothing for him to beat the shit out of you. So I think you become hypervigilant like that. Okay. And then sometimes he would be like a fun dad and he'd joke around, and all of a sudden he would just call you every name. He would go on these cruel mental things. Just calling, he used to call me little fag, little sissy, you little bastard, whatever. And then he'd be fine for a while. But so that's traumatic enough. And there was some other weird stuff down in there. But then that church stuff, I mean, that all led up to a lot of trauma.
I think any of us, now women probably have heard it as well, but I know every man at some point has heard from someone, my God, you're just like your dad. You either look just like your dad, or you sound like your dad.
Yeah.
Or you're doing something that your dad, and when you said that, I can't count how many times you've even told me that I sound like my dad when I go off on something, whether I'm yelling at a NASCAR race or whatever. But yeah, we all do go through that. I mean, and maybe that's the difference too, that makes it a little hard for me to understand a little bit of some of what you're going through.
Yeah.
Because when I was growing up, I'm not saying we had the Cleaver family lifestyle, but, I don't think we got the abuse like you're saying you got. So, yeah, I'm not saying Dad was 100% supportive of what we did.
Was a drinker, so you went through it differently. I think that's why you have no tolerance for alcohol.
Yeah. Because I watched what my mother went through with them.
And when at the height of my anxiety, that's where I was headed. So, I know the way that you react to alcohol. There's an aversion because your father was, a user of alcohol.
Well, we're getting near the end of this episode. So we are going to continue this. And we're going to release and have that one out on Thursday. So come back Thursday for part 2 of Dealing with Anxiety. We hope you all have a wonderful day, and we will see you again.